Welcome to the Build Your Legal Business podcast, the place for lawyers who want to scale without burning out. I am Hannah Becco, your self-employed lawyer coach, by your side as you create the practice you dream of, reduce your working hours, and change the fee earner mindset to successful lawyerpreneur. Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Build Your Legal Business podcast. Today, I'm really looking forward to getting to know Donna better. Donna has been a local government lawyer and an ex-head of law, and now she is the owner of the SILP School, the leading provider for independent reviewers. So I would love Donna to tell us lots about that, and I'm sure she will. But first of all, Donna, do you want to come and introduce yourself and perhaps expand a little on what I've said there?
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for having me, Hannah. So my name is Donna Ohdedar. I'm a qualified solicitor. My background is all in local government as a lawyer, and my last role was as head of law, as you have explained. And I became really interested upon leaving local government in 2009 in independent safeguarding reviews. So I've been an independent reviewer since 2009. And then since 2013, I opened SILP School, as you've mentioned, which is to train others to do what I do and deliver independent reviews.
Fantastic, Donna. So for those of us who are perhaps not so familiar with that, tell us a little bit about what independent reviewing is, what you do.
Sure. So there's three types of statutory review that we focus on and that we offer. One is a child safeguarding practice review, one is a safeguarding adults review, and one is a domestic homicide review. So they're different focuses and three different types of review, but all of them can fit for the skill set of a lawyer, in my opinion.
That's really interesting. I know before we started recording, I said to you, I'm sure lots of people who listen to this will be practicing lawyers who sometimes wonder, is there anything else I can do? And I'd love to hear your experience about this as well, because I know before I sort of set up other businesses myself, I sat there one day thinking, if I wanted to do anything other than be a lawyer, what else could I do? Because that's all I know. I've wanted to be a lawyer since I was 13. It's what I trained for. It's what I'd done for, at the time, sort of 15 years. I didn't think I could do anything else or know what else I could do. And yet, as I try to explain to people, even within your own skill set that you've been practicing in, there are things you can sort of take a sidestep towards. So what made you decide to do that? And how did you go about that?
Okay, there's two strands to that, actually, Hannah. So the first one is that I think sometimes that when we've had a long career, so my local government career was 16 years, we might start out doing the thing that really fires us up, and we might get promoted and promoted and promoted and end up not doing the thing that really fires us up. And it's not only me who speaks about this. I'm sure that you might resonate with it, or others might resonate with that as well. And I'll take you through what happened to me there. But before I do, I might just interject with something, because I have recently been to watch lots of open days for law degrees, because my daughter, who is 17, is thinking about doing a law degree. And I would love to tell all lawyers listening to this that just watching those presentations and what a law degree teaches you to do, which is think like a lawyer, craft an argument that has a legal base and evidence base, anticipate counter arguments. We've forgotten that we've got all these extremely valuable skills that are hugely transferable, because it's just what we do. And I would just love to empower anybody who's thinking, I don't think I can do anything else, because I absolutely didn't think I could do anything else, Hannah, too. That was definitely my experience.
Thank you for that. I think it's, yes, The world is changing, I think. I mean, by the sounds of it, we both potentially qualified around the same time, and there certainly was this sense that if you went down that path, that was what you would do, and that's what you would do for life. But I think there is now on LinkedIn and, all the different people that you can follow and connect with, you can see that there are so many other avenues, and it's still a really great career. And whether you stay in it and work in it full time, or whether you decide to do other things on the side, there's so many options there. So thank you for that. But yes, tell us how you evolved into what you're doing now.
How I evolved. So it's great to do this with hindsight. But when you're in the middle of it, you might not notice what happened in the same way. So I'll take you through mine, and it might be that somebody listening might be able to take small breadcrumbs of this and follow the trail. I began by doing advocacy, and I absolutely loved the quick fire nature of, right, you're off to court now, there's very little preparation time. These are in the days of practicing as a children's lawyer, might have an emergency protection order to go and take, on my feet, quick thinking, get in there and do your best in constructing your arguments and responding to counter arguments. So there's a good balance in there for me of, gosh, we've got to go and move quickly, and also sometimes a bit of back office stuff, because of course if I was instructing counsel, I'd be able to prepare the briefs and the pleadings and some work on skeleton arguments. So I had a great mix the way I started. And then I was promoted, I became head of service, and I was doing things like establishing the Children's Safeguarding Partnership, establishing the Adult Safeguarding Partnership. And there were some good ingredients for me in there as well, Hannah. And then I went to director level, and it was much more in the political environment. So it was complaints against councillors. It was very much in the evening meetings at night where the councillors, the members were voting. And I would sit there and think, is this really what I started out to do? And it wasn't. It clearly wasn't. And it was making me think, what next? But there were two things that I now know that I spotted that led me to the next career, which I didn't necessarily understand were leading me to the next career. And the first thing I noticed was that these leaders just had to constantly juggle priorities. So there are all these great priorities in front of them that all deserved attention, but they just had to choose one. And I saw that the review was one of the things that could just flip it around, because this set of circumstances just demanded that these politicians paid attention to the safeguarding agenda, this agenda that meant so much to me. And then the second thing I noticed was that at the highest political level, this agenda that I really wanted to receive attention wasn't receiving attention. So we had an elected mayor in the West Midlands, and it didn't seem like what mattered to me most was receiving attention at this level. So now I can look back on that, and I can look on the kind of frustration and dissatisfaction and the fact that I didn't feel like I was making a difference as the thing that spurred me on to something that I now know is better. And I wonder if that is also a feature for you and your guests, Hannah, in terms of that felt really frustrating, but that's what got me to here. Does that make sense?
It really does. And I was nodding away when you said that, because it is similar for me. When I was still practicing full time in my legal business, when it was the sort of stress and almost burnout that stopped me from doing that and made me think, what shall I do instead? And actually, it was coming out of that I thought, other lawyers need to know about this. There's not just me who's going through this issue, others are as well. So it's absolutely the case that it was through that experience that, by accident, if you like, I started this other work. But what I was really interested in there as well is you said it was, you saw something maybe that maybe others did see but didn't do anything about. But you saw that these reviews, for example, were like a a linchpin for change and to do things better. And I don't know if it was the case that nobody else saw it, but nobody else did anything about it. You did. And sometimes I think lawyers don't think of themselves as entrepreneurial or visionary or seeing things differently, but you clearly did. And I think there's more of us who can do that than we think.
Absolutely. I think there's more of us who can do that than we think. And that level of self-awareness. So if you had asked me before this whole experience what was most important to me, I started out thinking I absolutely did want to climb the ladder, and then the next promotion absolutely was an important thing for me. And when I look back, I know that I could see that making a difference, that sense that I was influential and making a difference, it trumped those other things. If we can have a good understanding of our own values, I think I could have shortened the timeline, perhaps, before it clicked what I wanted. And then all the other things just fall into place because you care so much about the thing, the agenda, your purpose, that you just think, right, I'm going to learn to become entrepreneurial. I'm going to learn how on earth to, manage the budget, run all my own admin, develop a social media following, whatever it is that's brand new that you've got to do, that you have to head scratch for. I think that underlying purpose just drives you to do it.
Oh my goodness, yes, I agree. But what would you say to people who don't know what their purpose is yet? I think for those of us that have sort of found it, it makes perfect sense to us and it drives us and it gets us through the difficult days. And people say, how do you keep posting on LinkedIn and how are you so honest and authentic? And I say, well, it's because I made a decision that if I wanted my business to work, that's what I had to do. But I had my purpose by then that drove me. But I didn't always have that. Have you got any thoughts for people who maybe have found themselves in a legal career? Perhaps they enjoyed it for a while, maybe now they don't. How could they think about that purpose, maybe?
Okay, so I guess that we do a little bit of this in SILP School, actually. We do some values work, and we think about what our drivers are. So, I'll say to the reviewers, what do you want to achieve from this that affects what goes on within your own four walls? So for me, within my family environment, I'd just given birth to baby number 2. It wasn't great for me to be in so many evening meetings. I wasn't there at tea time, and the times when you wanted to get back and connect. So there were lots of drivers within my own four walls. But then I say to the reviewers, and it might help your listeners too, what about beyond your four walls? What do you care about out there that feels like an injustice, or feels frustrating, or feels like, gosh, I've really got something to offer this because I seem to do this more effortlessly than other things. And that's how I help, and support people to think about what the next thing might be, and just to never underestimate those transferable skills that they have. And an example of that might be, within a review, what we want is somebody who's able to create a robust environment where there's challenge, but also a really sensitive environment because it's post-tragedy. There might be families who've suffered huge amounts of loss who want to engage in your review. So people who come from professions like social work, some health backgrounds, police, all of these professions, as well as lawyers, many lawyers are very well versed in this sensitive, client-focused approach to people who have been through something, but who really want to have respect and engage in a quite alien process. So those transferable skills, we all tend to underestimate them.
Oh, we do, and I hope that people listening maybe this gives them a chance to think about that a little bit if they haven't. And I always say to people, just walk around with your eyes open. You know, when you find yourself in that situation, and I was very similar to what you were saying there, that I was working all the hours, I was trying to do telecons with clients at 10 o'clock, you know, at night, and I wasn't spending the time with my children. And that was the whole reason I'd set up the business in the first place. But even though at first I didn't know what I wanted to do, I knew what I didn't want to do. I knew I didn't want to be tied to a computer all the time, and I didn't want to be working those hours. So I always say to people, if you work out sometimes what you don't want for your lifestyle, for your family, for your future, and then walk around with your eyes open, sometimes these things come to you. So hopefully that's useful for people. Something you were just talking about there that comes up a lot at the moment is, I'm asked often to help lawyers manage their emotions, if you like, and their responses when they're dealing with difficult or emotional clients and difficult or emotional topics. Because, as you know, the legal profession isn't an easy one, and there is a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety and things like that overall. And then when you add into that, perhaps, you know, domestic violence matters, family matters, children related matters, even I have to say, even commercial property, my clients can get emotional. What advice do you have sort of for yourself and your reviewers if they're getting involved in those sort of emotionally charged situations? How do they protect themselves?
I think there's something important about community. I think there's something important about not feeling like you're doing this sort of as a lone warrior, and that's a mistake that I made. And that was also a driver, Hannah, for why I wanted to create a community of reviewers. When I first started, I'd worked in an organisation that employed 20,000 people. And then suddenly, well, at that point, I didn't have an office. So it was on the kitchen table. It was very, very lonely. I didn't have anyone else who kind of got it. Nobody else was doing this in my environment, and I think that's an issue to watch out for. You haven't got anybody who's that sounding board, and who gets it. So anybody who can join a community for that, if they don't have it in their own structure, and I'm sure this must have happened to you too, Hannah, that's hugely important. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I just almost couldn't agree more. There wasn't that sense of community for me at the time, and I went and found it elsewhere with other business women. So when I knew I needed business help because I was burning out running my business the way I was, and then I knew I was going to start the second business, and so I found wonderful communities of supportive business women. But that's when I realized that lawyers didn't have this. They didn't have that support, and it is, you know, the old sort of adage of a problem shared is a problem halved. There's truth in it, because to be able to just speak it out loud and maybe get some advice, or maybe just get, oh, I feel that too, and you're not alone, and that's normal, and there's nothing wrong or different about you for feeling like that. That makes such a difference. So I think you are right. And there are far more communities out there now for employed lawyers, self-employed lawyers, for all sorts of, whatever it is that we're doing. But I think it's important that you find yourself a community that is supportive and provides you with that outlet.
And Hannah, it's not only the solopreneur, is it? Because people might be in an organisation, but there's nobody in that organisation doing quite uniquely what you do. So they want to be supportive, but they don't quite get this, do they? They don't quite know this bit. So yes, the more specialist the community, you know, I'm thinking about yours and your listenership here. The more specialist the community, the more we can get each other, can't we? The more we can understand the position of, you know, I know you don't quite know what this is yet, and I support you, and I've been where you are. There's nothing like hearing that, is there? I've solved this problem, and you can too. Yeah, absolutely. It's that mixture of listening and advice. You know, I think both are really important. Sometimes it's important to just listen and say, yes, you know, I hear how hard that is. And then other times it's, yes, you know, I've been there and this might help you to shortcut it. You know, don't make the mistakes I've made, sort of leapfrog over those. And this is my advice. So, yes, I think
think we all need that support, as you say, whether you can get it within your organisation or whether perhaps they don't get you and they don't have that support and you can find it somewhere else. I think it's vital. It really is.
I mean, with mine, Hannah, it might be that the reviewers come to me and say, I feel like I'm going mad here because I feel like I should be standing strong against challenge on this point. And then I'm being chipped away at by people perhaps who've had more experience of this than me. And then I might say, well, when I was in that position, I tried X, Y, and Z. And, you know, some light bulbs might go off. It's just that troubleshooting that kind of that really helps, isn't it? Even though you haven't rounded it off, you haven't come up with the solution, you've just come together to collaborate.
Yes, and yeah, troubleshooting definitely, and not feeling alone. I think and not that you're the only one. Thank you, Donna. Is there anything else? Anything else? I know we've covered quite a bit actually in a short time, but is there anything else you feel other lawyers might need to hear or know if they are wondering about their future?
It's such a good time to ask me this because I've just been through that experience with my daughter and those open days, and I can see them all sitting there thinking, I think law's right for me. I'm not sure if it's definitely a legal career, and I feel like we can all be more self-assured these days that what we might initially do might not be a career for life. And that's what I'm trying to impart to my daughter as well, in terms of try this and it's okay to try that, and it's okay that you're not here forever. And especially coming from a background like local government, where a lot of people are there with their eye on that pension, and it's really it's so easy to be sucked into thinking you're a failure because you haven't done something for a lifetime, you have tried something new, and it may or may not work, but that's okay because it will lead you on to the next, even more decent thing. Do you like that kind of view on it as well, Hannah?
I do, and I couldn't agree more with you. My children are a little bit younger, so my eldest is 13, and years ago, my husband and I, because he's a lawyer as well, would really have tried to talk our children out of a career in law just because it was toxic and stressful, and I didn't want that for them. Whereas now that there is so many more options, and as you say, and I actually say this to the kids, I never say, what do you want to do when you grow up? If I say anything, I say, what do you want to do first? Because I think we are in a place now where people do have multiple careers, and there's nothing wrong with that. One springboards you on to the other. And doing a legal degree or even starting work out in the legal profession is always going to be a good grounding and give you lots of opportunities in the future, I think. So, yes, I think that's a lovely point. Thank you, Donna. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us. And I'm sure that the audience have picked up a lot from that. Where can they find you if they want to connect with you, perhaps on LinkedIn, if that's all right, or to find out more about you?
Perfect. Thank you for asking that. So perhaps would we share something in the show note, Hannah, of me on LinkedIn?
Yes.
If people want to have a look at my programs, yes, or just DM me, but should we share all of that so that it's an open door?
Perfect. I absolutely will. Yes. And thank you, Donna. Thank you again so much.
Thanks for having me.
I hope you found that conversation with Donna useful in terms of thinking about how versatile a legal career can be. Just one other thought, if you are someone who is thinking about maybe continuing in your career the way that it currently isn't something you want to do, or maybe you want to add something into the mix like I have done and like lots of the lawyers I work with have as well, then do check out our Side Hustles for Lawyers episode. I will put a link to it in the show notes, where we have a discussion about what other things maybe could you do with the skills that you already have. And one of my top tips from that episode is Have you Googled yourself recently? What comes up when you Google yourself? And if there isn't a lot, or there isn't a lot of content, or there isn't a lot that relates to what you do and your expertise, then you might want to have a think about that. And if I can support you with that at all, then please do get in touch. Don't forget, it's hannah@authenticallyspeaking.co.uk, or you can find us at authenticallyspeaking.co.uk or LinkedIn. Take care.